Still with me in the studio, Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos, Nigeria, and Ologun, legal practitioner and national development advocate. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me.
You're welcome.
Again this week. Well, we had three guests. Engineer Ajiboye, Oluwagbenga Ajiboye, the man who is in charge of the national grid of Nigeria. And we needed to know, why is it that the national grid is perpetually collapsing, despite the trillions of naira that the Nigerian government has spent on transmission the last few years? Then, of course, what are the plans for the future? Is there any guarantee that there will be no national grid collapse at the same embarrassing rate that we have had in 2024? And where is the weak link in the electricity supply chain? Second, it's December, and we talked about travel and tourism and the business of Christmas with Dr. Gbadebo of Eko Hotel and also Ayodele Adio, who tried to explain the concept that this is truly looking like it to be a dirty December, and that people, can get a lot of fun, in Lagos. Well, I thought, is it really true that there's poverty in the country? If people are spending 7 million within 5 days just to have a short holiday in the country. Anyway, I'm sure you listened to the two of them. And then, of course, we had a gentleman from Delta State, the Secretary General of the Ologun Renaissance Society, who came to talk about the death in custody, in military custody, of two elders of the Okwama community who had been arrested and detained in connection with the killing of 17 soldiers in Delta State last year. And then, of course, he had his own position, articulating the position of the affected Urobo community. Maybe I should start with you, Professor Aworawo, since you are from Delta State, and you have your own insights about this death of two elders.
Let me just start with that last story, the one on the Okwama community. Yes, my place is not far from that place. In fact, my secondary education was just a few kilometers from that territory, Ewu Kingdom, Kwama, and the other communities around. First, condolences to the families of the two elders of Okwama who have died in military custody. Even as we also continue to say condolences also to the families of the 17 soldiers that were killed in that community by a year or so ago, or a couple of months ago rather. When this matter broke, we shared ideas here. We also, we have insights into conflict resolution, military strategy, and all. And we used our expertise to advise the military that instead of making the community people, the Okwama community people, enemies, going there to do the usual thing that soldiers do, indiscriminate killing and displacement of people, they should rather carry out intelligence, very careful intelligence, carry out intelligence, do intelligence gathering and all that, so that they can identify the real culprits and focus on them. And that if they make the local community enemy, what will likely happen is that even those who have information will not provide. And that will just be the end of story. And that's where we are now. The military didn't listen to us. They decided to go after everybody in the community. They blocked the place for some time, even prevented the governor from having access to the place. Houses were burned down, people were displaced. It took quite some time before the place was opened up again. And then these leaders were arrested. The question to us, you asked the secretary of the Ologun Renaissance Society a question as to, what they know about what has transpired. He used a couple of comments, but I also want to correct that. I do not think that the military killed these people. What I think is just the wrong approach. You also asked, you also wondered aloud whether What happened, because there were reports that they had been handed over to the police, how come they are not dying in military custody? What that means is that that report was not true. The military just adopted the wrong approach. And, now those who, and the approach has led to lose-lose situation for the military, for the community. Now, the real culprits are not known. They are still not being identified. Nobody has been paraded, these are people who have direct link, and we have credible evidence for that. That is not. These people are just picked up because of their positions in the different communities, and unfortunately, these people have died in custody. The other question to ask is that, how long will it take for them to investigate, to know the culpability of these people? The young man also asked the question, that why have they not been charged to court, as the law requires? So it smacks of lawlessness, actually, going outside the law in the way this case has been handled. The other side to it is that His Royal Majesty Clement Ikolo, to which he also made reference, that Senator Dafinoya and others helped to intervene and got released. How come he was released and these other ones, after this many months, remained in custody? And somebody does not just die, bam, as they say in pidgin these days, that the person pie. It's not just the case of somebody who would, somebody in custody, if he's getting sick to the point that he might die, people will know. Why did they allow them to die in their custody? Did he make provision for medical attention and all that perhaps their lives could be saved? So the long and short is that the military has adopted the wrong approach. They didn't follow our advice when this matter broke. And it's the lose-lose situation. The community is losing people, and everybody there's tension in the community. The real culprits themselves have not been arrested. At least as far as we know, we have not seen any indication along that line. There's need to change approach, and not just for this case, and for the future. When a matter like this breaks, intelligence gathering, and careful study of the situation is what will lead to identifying the real culprits and bring them to justice. Now, the real culprits are somewhere. We do not know them. These other people, we don't know how they are linked, but after so many months, the Nigerian military needs to change tactics in handling issues like this. Then the second, tourism. Yeah, they spoke well. The tourism industry in several countries, that is the backbone of the economy in several countries. Here, not much. It doesn't contribute much to the Nigeria's GDP, but the potentials are there, just as they pointed out. They need more support from government. All sorts of taxes they pay, and sometimes their services now become so expensive, prohibitive, that people can afford. Just like the lady said, the co-hotel lady said, that business people mostly are the ones that patronize. And then at times like this, holiday makers. You say dirty for the mega rich. Yeah, yes, it should be dirty, yes. Dirty, they are D-E-T-T-Y, for the mega rich. The poor people will go nowhere near celebrating. In fact, the rice they used to eat, the tomato cup rice we used to just boil and eat. Many will not have it to eat this Christmas. And of course, that is again one thing that the government must pay attention to. Then there's need to reduce poverty in the country. The poverty rate is very high. Multidimensional poverty now in Nigeria is 70.7%. In 2022, when the concept became popularized, it was 63%. 133% Nigerians were multidimensionally poor. Now it is 70.7%. Nigeria is third, just behind Somalia and South Sudan. And it's real. It is not just figure. Just go out there. It's real. So I agree with them that maybe some tax score break here and there to support them, because really energy cost is just out of this world, from 65 to 223 per kilowatt hour. And when you calculate that, in fact, I know of I have some friends who have private schools. They no longer use PSCM. They say they are better off, even with the high cost of diesel, and they are better off focusing on using a generator. They use alternative power, maybe solar and all that. And because the bill that PSCM brings, they just can't afford it. They will shut down if they accept that. And countries should not run like that. It should not be possible for people to run alternative sources cheaper than the main source. So I agree with them that government needs to assist them so that those potentials can be tapped. Then finally, national grid collapsing. Yeah, it's been the 12th time this year. Well, maybe we hope that will be the last. So we say one per month. But one other side to it is that the last 6 took place just about 2 months ago. What that means is that from January to about August, we only had a few, maybe 4 or 5. And then from that time till now, we had the rest, which means things are going the wrong direction. The engineer pointed out a couple of things, vandalization, and of course, maybe inability to pay for gas. Why would they not be able to pay for gas? With the high cost, this high amount people are paying. Which brings the third issue. People are being charged 25 naira per kilowatt hour. They are paying with the assumption that they get 20 hours per 24 hours. With all this breakdown, national grid collapsing and all that, people don't get the 20 hours. It's just that people they have no choice. That's why any amount of hours they are giving, they just take it. But that's a rip-off, really. So all of these things are things that, moving forward, there's a whole lot for government to do, for stability to be restored to the economy and to the social structure of the country.
Well, Mr. Ologun.
Thank you. Let me pick it from the national grid. Yes, many excuses have been given for the ugly experience 12 times in 2024. It's quite embarrassing. We've spoken about faults and vandalization. I read about the generating aspect owing for gas. And I know that Nigeria has the largest deposit of proven gas in Africa. So I see some systemic issues there and lack of synergizing effort to really put energy in its right place. Because when he was discussing these issues, he made reference to a point that are they generating for people to watch television or for production? Yes, Nigeria needs to be productive. But if you also look at the macroeconomic environment, is there an encouragement for productivity in Nigeria? The answer is no. Then I also want to point to one issue, which is the vulnerability of the system we drive in the country. Recall that when NLC was on strike and TUC the other time, while negotiating the minimum wage, the national grid was shut down, and I was really, really disturbed. That is vulnerability. And the fact that we have not been able to effectively defend our infrastructure in the country. Look at the oil and gas and the contract, billions of naira given to Tantita to monitor the pipelines. But we still have oil theft. So Nigeria needs to wake up. You see, any economy that is frontline inclined must pay attention to energy to empower that economy. And like a wise man said, you are not rewarded for excuses, you are rewarded for performance. And many have suggested decentralize this grid. Just have a national grid. And if you look at the history of electricity in Nigeria, it dates back to 1886. And by now, we should have come far in perfecting what we have to empower the citizens of the nation. And on Okwama's case, it's such an ugly one, and I want to advise the military that if you combine this with the recent allegations from Amnesty International, claiming that about 10,000 have died in the custody of the military, even though those allegations were denied, then I think, and again, a previous one about reproductive violence, which also alleged that about 10,000 abortions were carried out. You need to really engage public relations approach to resolving these issues, like Professor Aworawo said, rather than the usual method, which will dampen the image of the military. And I'm also concerned about sincerity of purpose here. The government promising to rebuild the community, and the representative of the community came out to say that the work being done there does not measure up to what is promised. Public relations will also say you walk your talk. Government should be seen to be on ground to do what is right. And we hope that what has happened now will not further create crisis, talking about the relationship between civilians and the military, particularly in the Niger Delta region that itself is volatile. And that brings us to the dirty December or Christmas. Yes, Christmas is a time when tourism really flourishes. And if you go back to the scripture, even when Jesus was born, it was not without tourism profiling. You know, people went to Bethlehem for some festivities, and he was born. And it's a good time for those who are in the hospitality. And talking about who can afford, those who can afford will be there. And Nigeria has two major classes of citizenry. You talk of the very rich and those who are vulnerable on the other side. I recall I had a meeting in hotels at the time, and a client invited us, and I asked someone to follow me there. And when the person drank malt and he saw the price, he shivered. And I said, yes, this is not mainland. This is island. I should pray to drink more of this. So, and that is Nigeria for you. While some are on the vulnerable side, some are on the side where they even ask, you know, it's all about how do we even spend this money, not that there's no money to spend. And I think we should develop our tourism potentials in the country. And again, it's important that we look at the level of insecurity in the country. But obviously, for those who are organized in their businesses, Christmas is a time of good business, talking about entertainment, talking about food. Because for citizens, no matter how tough the poverty is, particularly when you consider the fact that a lot of gifts go out this season, they will enjoy themselves. I read a very funny presentation that from January to November, you complain about witches and wizards from the village. And in December, you bought transport to go and meet them. But I think that's even going down now. People are choosing to celebrate where they are, given the cost of transportation. I understand that to get to Port Harcourt from Lagos, it costs about 50,000 naira, by road. So, and when you look at the airfare, but by and large, it's a season of rejoicing, and we wish everyone the peace and the joy of the season associated with Jesus Christ, the very essence of Christmas. And for those in business, in tourism, make the best of it. Position yourself effectively.
Okay, let's take another topic, River State. And this time I'll start with you first, Mr. Ologun. The Court of Appeal in Abuja last Friday upturned the judgment of a federal high court that stopped the release of federal monthly allocations from the consolidated funds to the River State government. A three-member panel of the court heard that the trial court in the first instance lacked the necessary jurisdiction to entertain the suit, asking it to withhold funds accruing to the state on grounds that the 2024 appropriation was yet to be presented before the River State House of Assembly. Justice Joyce Abdul Malik had, in her judgment delivered on October 30, restrained the Central Bank of Nigeria and Accountant General of the Federation from further release of the funds on alleged constitutional breach. According to the judge, the current budget being operated by the state was not passed by a lawful arm of the River State House of Assembly, and therefore held that the government should be prevented from further violation of the laws. Mr. Ologun.
I'm worried while reading that report, and I asked a simple question. Should the court be told that they lack jurisdiction? And I think I threw that to our constituency because it's quite embarrassing. Because when you look at the implications of some of these decisions, you should be bothered. But good a thing that you have the appellate court to run to. And from this Court of Appeal, you can still proceed to the Supreme Court, which became the highest court in the land since 1963 when we became a republic. And I think this is good news for governance in the country because you can imagine what would have happened. And I still want this issue of the legislators in Rivers State that defected. It has not been finalized. You see, there is the constitutional provision there are court pronouncements on it. And you can see that even in another party now, some people are just defecting at will to other parties without the prerequisite that we allow them to do that. The rule of law is meant to sanitize the society. And I may not be calling for sanctions here because we have our procedures in the land, but I think we should upscale. The court should come to the point where litigants come and they are told point blank, we cannot entertain this matter, so that we don't waste time and resources. But we are waiting to see what the outcome will be if the matter goes to the Supreme Court. But right now, funds will be released to Rivers State to run the governance system in the state and bring down the heat. And reportedly, attached to this matter, I also read that these are all outflows of battles between the erstwhile governor, the former governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, and the sitting governor, Fubara, who were political allies, but now estranged. And I think, like Harvard advised at the time, governance should be elevated above politics. But that may be a very tough message for politicians to embrace, because the casualties, really impact the citizens. So, do I say congratulations to people of Rivers State as we monitor what the outcome will be from the Supreme Court, that we lay this matter to rest. But please, like I mentioned, the stakeholders should please let this issue of the defection be finally resolved, because one of the issues is that Governor Fubara presented the budget to a four-man member of the House of Assembly, while the 27 have jumped to another party, so that we will be guided by the rule of law in the land.
Professor Aworawo.
Yeah, I would join Barrister Ologun to congratulate people of Rivers State. They need to have their money. They need to have their money spent on them, spent on projects that will improve the quality of life of the people. But I'm afraid the courts will not be able to even resolve this matter finally, not even the Supreme Court. So it comes down to the point I've always made about who we are and how we carry on. Now, 27 lawmakers in Rivers have defected. As provided for in the Constitution, their seats are supposed to be vacated. Where we should be now is election to fill those seats. But politics is just still playing Fubara versus Wike, and the people are just there. They are the ones that suffer it. The 27 lawmakers may also have a case, if you were to look at it comprehensively, because in the House of Reps, people are moving. They are moving back and forth. Former Governor Buri's daughter just moved a while ago. And we do not see any of them whose seat has been declared vacant on account of this. The seats that were declared vacant during the week were seats of Opebolo, who was in Senate, and the deputy, who was in House of Reps. All the other ones who are moved from Labour Party to APC, from PDP, all of those movements, none of them has lost their seats. So the Rivers 27 lawmakers will have a case to say, why should we lose our seat? They have examples in the House of Reps and Senate, where the leaders have not behaved responsibly. People who are making law cannot keep the law. People who are interpreting law cannot keep the law. So there is a logjam. So it's more of a systemic thing. The Supreme Court will rule, but if the Supreme Court rules, what about the others? What about the intricate, complicated case in Rivers? If the Supreme Court rules that, okay, the money of Rivers should go to Rivers, it's really not tidy that the budget is presented to 4 people. The neat thing is that elections should be held to fill those positions so that we have a full house. But politics is not allowing that to happen. So who our people are, this self-centeredness and inability to keep to the law is a problem. And that has to be addressed side by side, the legal intervention.
Okay, let's go to South Korea. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol vowed on Saturday to fight for his political future after he was impeached in the second vote by the opposition-led parliament over his short-lived attempt to impose martial law, a move that had shocked the nation. The Constitutional Court will now decide whether to remove Yoon sometime in the next 6 months. If he's removed from office, a snap election will be called. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, who was appointed by Yoon, became acting president, while Yoon remains in office, but with his presidential powers suspended halfway through his 5-year term. and promises utmost efforts to ensure stability after Yoon's impeachment. Yoon is the second conservative president in a row to be impeached in South Korea. Park Geun-hye was removed from office in 2017. Yoon survived the first impeachment vote last weekend when his party largely boycotted the vote, depriving parliament of a quorum.
The road is always in the people. That is the history of the Republic of Korea. That is why the Republic of Korea is strong. The weight of the ballot paper that the members of the National Assembly will accept today is heavier than ever. It is the weight of history and the weight of democracy. I ask that each and every one of you participate in the vote. I hereby present the first item on the agenda, the motion for the impeachment of President Yoon Suk-yeol.
Professor Aworawo.
Yeah, we predicted it last week that the days of Yoon were numbered, and a week later, the man is gone. It is almost certain that the Constitutional Court would confirm the impeachment, just as it did in 2017 for the case of Park. In fact, if you ask me, the infractions of Yoon are far more grave than those of Park. He says, well, he has started a journey with the people, he's continuing the journey. I don't know where his journey is going to. It's just, for me, his journey to nowhere, because his approval rating has come down to 13%. So even if the people were with him 2022 when the journey started, they are certainly not with him now. So I can only congratulate the people of South Korea for standing firm. They took risks. They put themselves in harm's way after the declaration a little over a week ago. They stood firm, and their standing firm has yielded fruit. We hope that future leaders of South Korea will learn that the people have zero tolerance now for corruption and for authoritarianism, which this leader has manifested. So I congratulate the people of South Korea. Hopefully there will be smooth movement of political activities, an election will hold, and a new leader will come, and then they can move on with their lives.
Mr. Ologun.
Yeah, his reaction is what you should expect from a politician who is painting the picture of resilience. For the People's House, they've declared their intention that you have to step aside, and the Prime Minister has stepped in as acting president. And like we said last week also, I do not see him surviving this, particularly when there are concerned stakeholders from his party. And I must say, I have always envied the governance system in South Korea. They are not cowed by status of those in leadership. And I think that's a great one for some countries of the world to emulate. And despite the harsh weather, people have come out to say, you gotta go. And he's now waiting for the Constitution Court. And by precedent, what happened to Park, he may also be preparing to fully step out of the way. But then, like I said, one remarkable attribute of politicians is that strong confidence that let the moon turn to sun, we will survive. We are waiting to see how he will scale through. So I say kudos to South Koreans who are saying we have a quality that we expect from leadership. And I'm still, amazed by his intention by introducing the martial law and trying to hold fiercely onto power. When you've been given opportunity, you can warm your way into the hearts of your citizens by performing effectively. So there are lessons across the globe to learn from South Korea.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ologun, and thank you, Professor Aworawo. I look forward to seeing you again next week. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati, and from my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.